starting with manufacturing, sales, distribution, and also healthcare service providers. For example, or taking over clinics, for example. In our group, we also partner together with Japanese, again in other industries that are referring to our previous partners on the pulp and paper industries. So if anybody is familiar with, our first partner was Otsuka Seiyaku, which is actually a pharmaceutical company, and we developed the devices that sell together with the drugs for the Southeast Asian market. Again, when we started to partnering with Japanese investments, we also created another electronics industry, which were machines. Dialysis machines were brought into Thailand. We manufactured the disposables. Again, either we sell back to Japan or we create a domestic and regional market through our Southeast Asian representatives we have. This is a timeline, which is actually very detailed, but it's only to show you how we started from the 1970s to the current year, how we partnered with each type of investment coming in from overseas, and how we eventually got recognition from the local industries for export markets. Here we show where we are directly responsible from Thailand as a global distributor. What I do not show over here is the American side, where our Japanese partner is responsible for that, and they distribute and register and set up their own channels in the United States. We, as a local company, we look after either the green or the blue or the yellow colored ones for our markets in this region or around this region. Here are some of the certifications we have in the medical industry. We need to be certified to certain standards that either you can manufacture, either you can sell, or actually you can distribute products within your own territory. So our partners and ourselves, we have invested heavily on the certification level for all quality management systems. Referring originally from the Australian system, where they have already qualified FDA regulatory issues governing the sales overseas. So in Thailand, in those days, in the 1980s and 1990s, we did not yet have such a system yet. So we had to be certified on a regional basis, and we chose the nearest one we could find through our Japanese partners, being the Australian FDA for global sales. And currently we now converted from Australian to British. And this is the scope. For any medical device range of business, first of all, we need to be clear on what your scope of areas and products you are manufacturing and selling. So we try to diversify. The growth rate for the healthcare industry that we have determined to be in this region grew together with either the population that was coming towards an aging population or a population where they had chronic disabilities or chronic illness. The one that we have chosen for chronic illness was dialysis, which was actually a transfer of technology from Japan to Thailand to start manufacturing products for, again in Japanese, if anybody is familiar, we call it Jingo Toseki. So it's actually for dialysis treatments. Next, here we have, just to show you, we have a 1,800 people workforce. Our current turnover is approximately 3 billion, and our sales for overseas markets is 54%. All of our factories, we have approximately 6 facilities altogether, are comprised of similar things like this. But we make plastic technology. Our electronics are manufactured by Japan and sold together with our plastics disposables. We have clean room facilities, and recently we also have embarked on nutrition. We find that patients not only need education, but also we found that there was another area that we could actually diversify from Thailand's base of industries in electronics, in automobiles, in plastics, and of course into food industries. So we created a clinical nutrition product, which is a food derivative for patients who cannot eat by themselves anymore. And we created that as a clinical nutrition, our latest brand new facility as well. And also we have what we call turnkey manufacturing. We do sterilization in-house, we do inspection and everything according to the system for medical devices. Here is a standard package that normally we would need to identify ourselves as to what is the customer buying. In the medical industry, thing that they come to talk to us is that, is your product? The only way you can answer that is that how good is your quality management system? And this is why they ask to see us before we even sign a contract on how do you entail or what do you cover in terms of testing protocols to ensure that your medical products are safe for human use. This is what we normally have to associate all the contracts that we do with the overseas business partners. Here is a brief description of the range of products we have. Again, I am into plastics technology. So we have intravenous administration sets, we have infusions, we have blood transfusion as one of the main categories. Why do I show this product as an example of what our range covers? In order to be able to succeed in selling something like this, you need to partner together with people who are selling drugs to go into the veins. That means if we don't have assurance that the customers are of that basis, to do this alone, you might suffer competition. You might suffer a certain barrier to enter the market because you don't have the drugs that are delivered or the blood that goes in the transfusion of a patient that goes into surgery. So we have to partner together. In the case of blood banking, we have to go into the red country to make sure that when they sell blood bags or when they distribute blood bags to the patient during a surgical procedure, we have already assured us we're going to use our disposables under their brand. So Thailand started the history of conducting business in manufacturing with what we call OEM. And nowadays we have now changed from OEM to ODM, meaning we do original design manufacturing. We use the concept from the customers, we create reverse engineering, we put a lot of design control, and we come up with products. But why I show you this? Because in your eyes, it might look a cheap plastic consumable product. But behind that is actually the part that you have joined together with your overseas partners to enter a regional market. At the moment, largest market for Thailand happens to be not only ourselves in terms of domestic, but Indonesia. Indonesia because of the population size. And because of such partnering, our success factor has become that our products are sold together with the Indonesian pharmaceutical products. Their brand, again using our partner's name. We also have, as I told you a while ago, using the same technology to create disposables, plastics. We found that nutrition was something that was a large market, not only because we had a firm base of food manufacturing, but we found that because of an aging population, people are becoming more and more bedridden. You go into the market, who the patients are no longer in the hospitals. What we found out is that the patients who are in need of health care have been discharged from the hospital because they need the bag, and those patients, the last category we found were comatose. They were no longer able to eat or live by themselves. They had to be always in a bed at home. And if we don't follow that trend into their home, we will only cut capabilities inside the hospital. So we found that there was a gap. There was a market niche that we can actually create the demand to enter from manufacturing to hospitals, and from hospitals we followed directly into the home basis, meaning bedridden patients who are in need of some form of nutrition, which can be administered not by the doctors or the nurses, but then train the health providers in their homes to create what we call a meal that they cannot eat by themselves. To be fed by a tube that goes into the stomach. And we use the same technology that we did for the pharmaceuticals in tubings and connectors and everything to create a different type of patient base of the market that we have. So we created something into clinical nutrition. Before it was given intravenously through the blood veins, and now we're giving it directly to the stomach. That is a diversification. Always, as I said, you need to have a partner. In Thailand, the largest partner to make a food product for ill people happens to be either tuna based, because we have a large industry for tuna and chicken. We happen to have a partner in this very key in tuna canning manufacturing. We diversified one of their product lines into healthcare and created a substance made from for feeding. Here we have also, again, when you have an aging people, find that there is a lot of brain surgeries because they have a stroke. And if you were to import products of this nature for those surgical bases in around the country, it was going to be very, very expensive for the government sector. So we were requested by schools to put in R&D, to put R&D in surgical systems for neurosurgery. So we came up with a category that can go into a patient, into a certain treatment that is using our original base of manufacturing for a regional market and based right now at the moment for Thailand and all the medical schools surrounding Thailand. And here we have what we call a very fashionable, from doing just plastics in terms of polymers, we created by because of the fashion industry to what we call facial reconstruction. We changed from the normal plastic to do a tuning or a device into an implantable device. We looked upon as a medical device in terms of it's an implantable grade there to reconstruct the facial appearance of a person, not necessarily a patient, except now, of course, from a traffic incident. But rhinoplasty in Korea is very popular. In Thailand, as you know, many people come to Thailand some kind of surgery to perform some kind of changes to their bodily functions, and we found that this is a safe bet for us to try to compete with what Thai people are going to Korea just to get their nose done. So we something of a grade. What I'm trying to show here is cleaning. All the applications you see behind that in terms of regulatory issues is a word called risk management. When you change a product category from one to the other, there is always a risk management associated. This is going to be inside the user or the person for a long time. So all these control elements to create an attraction for the device of the customers, you have to show to your regional partners that you know how to manage a risk factor. An implantable grade has to go all the way back to the materials that are originating from the US and having to support all the registration before we can even sell the first product for doing an implant. So what I'm trying to tell you is that every risk analysis has to be nowadays documented. If we're all coming from the AEC countries, we are now familiar with something called the CSDT Common Submissions Dossier Template. It is required for registration purposes. It is required that and it is required that you show that you have proper risk management in your design categories to create a product for the medical devices. Now, I show you this also is a change a little bit. We don't do toys, but to create plastic, you need precision. To be precision, that means when you connect all these toys together, they become a house, for example, a toy house. But you can see that if you were to play with these toys, you see that they have a clicking mechanism. That means they connect with each other perfectly. They don't let them come loose. This kind of technology Thailand did not have in terms of precision or connectivity and connectology that we call it. We had to create and import even from overseas, America, Europe, Japan, and even China, and Taiwan as well, what we call precision tools to create something like this. So we see a while ago that the same connectivity of plastics to create a toy product is using a similar technology to design components. You need to have a diversified variety of your plastics capability to come up and design a product using a change in technology from to manufacturing. All of these require precision tooling. And this is why when I say Thailand can be a hub or not, is because we had grown over the past 40, 50 years in the automobile industry. The automobile industry has become what we call a Me Too product. Everybody wants to jump from cars and automobiles into the medicals because they find that there is more value per kilogram if you base these plastic components in terms of sales. So we have a lot of swimming across from the car and automobile industry to join the medical industry because of this factor. They still own the precision tooling that they either do themselves in-house or they import from overseas and help us to create the connectivity plus technology, and we call that connectology. How to connect things together and make the flawlessly when you have a patient's life at risk. All of these require certain design control elements in the polymer industry, which we are actually part of that industry when we grew from 49 years ago. Now, when we partner together, one of my positions is as a director for dialysis products. This is electronics. Thailand still doesn't have that capability to manufacture and or fabricate electronics for something as delicate as this. This is something that is used for people who are suffering from kidney failure. We call them renal failure and end stage. That means they have to go to the clinics every 3 days or every 2 days and do dialysis. But we were able to get these kind of technology transfers in terms of after-sales maintenance because of one factor. We have the disposables. They have a Japanese partner that we have joined together as a joint venture, relocated all the manufacturing to Thailand, and proud today also Vietnam. Anybody? We also have 2 factories now in Vietnam doing the disposables. And our Japanese partner, of course, using their brand, is called Nikiso. This is the largest dialysis treatment centers in Japan. At the moment, Thailand number 2, second ranking in Thailand already in terms of the dialysis centers we have. So because of that ability to ensure that not only can we manufacture the consumables that go with the products, but the Japanese asked us one question: if we want to look after the electronics, what happens when something goes wrong with a machine? The nurse or the doctor will call you immediately and you have to rush over to help them. So if you go into a car, the automobile service center, you will find the impression that there is always a high quality of service when you maintain and look after a car. The same has to happen if we want to send this message to the doctors. What we sent to the doctors was that we have good after sales, we train our engineers in Japan, and everybody knows how to handle the problem when a machine makes a certain signal or a certain alarm. Which is actually very hard to convince them in the first place until they get to show either our Japanese base of operations and or our own base of operations in Thailand that they are equal. So if you buy a car made in Japan, for example, you would need to be assured that the service center, the garage, or the maintenance people good follow-up on the manufacturing of the car when you want to bring it in for service. Same concept applies here. We could not get this back unless we were able to train the people beforehand. It took us nearly 5 to 7 years at that time to train everybody to be conscious of what machines need to be maintained, repaired, and or serviced on a regular basis. Then we are able to start partnering and selling machines into Asia. We looked after the first few countries, Vietnam among them, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, if I remember, Malaysia as well. So we are in charge of this region for dialysis supplies and training of all the engineers. So this is actually the structure of our business, our corporation, how we became in the theme today that I was requested to present, to become a hub of the supply chain. The supply chain starting with the hospitals, the clinics, the doctors, our manufacturing, our factories, and also the end users and the technology providers from overseas. Now, this is very done quickly because they told me I have only 10 minutes left, so the rest will be the boring part, but actually the trade secret. I'm told that I am allowed, I actually give this as a lecture, but what I will show you from now on is no longer what to our business or our core business, but basically it has to do with how you operate the business. What drives your product or your company? Meet up with your partners to be able to create an internal business arena for yourselves. So starting with this, I already highlighted here in green for you to see and read easily. It has to do about setting up your business operations to attract your partners from overseas. I have to go very quick now because it's a lot of slides, but all these green things that you see over here are all about giving your partners a certain assurance that your operations are ready, partnering and expanding into your only in Thailand or in your own countries. The next topic is about what we did, because our companies, our groups, comprise of 1,800 people. Nearly 80% 80% are all Japanese oriented. So there is a certain strategy that you have to formulate together with the Japanese partners, how to create your own identity. There is all the Japanese system in their strategies, what they call mass production. They will transfer everything to Thailand only when you have a sizable scale of manufacturing, not a small to medium enterprise. You have to be large enough. So that is what was among those criteria to grow with the partners. They also have process innovation. Our partners from Japan, they love to innovate or create a new process that is cost effective. And if you are able to identify yourselves as such, then you become attractive for them to come and partner together with you and create what we call a target criteria to manage the cost of manufacturing in Thailand competitively, if you want, even with China, for example. We have here what we call the success factors, creating a business with Japanese partners. You need to show them that you have national sales coverage. We have altogether a number of overseas and local that we have acquired to do sales coverage for the whole country and even cross-border transactions. We have partnering with pharmaceutical industries. We have joint venture formation. We have technology transfers, networking with the Australian sector, because we are also Australia and Asia together as one community. We have competitiveness in terms of our challenges that we have, and we have what we call the total market evaluation for pre-alliance. In a short while, I will show you that we have migrated from medical devices into something called biotechnology, biomedicine. We are now changing our direction, not changing, we have added a new direction from generic medical devices into biomedicine and biotech. Here is just a conceptual framework of what a joint venture partnership will be entailed. It has to do with manufacturing, it has to do with distribution, it has to be able to show that you have a profitability index. You have to secure the market on your own first in order to attract your partners to come over, and you have to create a new business enterprise. Sometimes you create a partnership silently. You don't even create them with your own name. Sometimes you need to have ownership but do not appear too prominent. What I'm telling you here is that because if our partner is very strong in that market and you want to sell to that competitor as a manufacturer, when you have a partner who is strong from somewhere, it is difficult to sell to their own competitor. So you have to make sure that you can actually have ownership and control, not using brand recognition as much. In certain categories for pharmaceutical products, we market their competitors. But how can you become a contract manufacturer to all the brands? In that way, the only way we can do that in the past was to change the identity. We had to create a new identity, we had to downsize the shareholders, but we created a new market. From the previous competitors, they have now become either our partners, and in most cases, direct customers. And they don't mind that as long as you scale down the identity of the corporate itself that you are tied with. That was the joint venture strategies we had to convince to our Japanese partners this was the way to enter the market, using what we call private branding criteria. Private branding has become big in those days. The next one. The next one is actually adaptive culture. It's part of creating a joint venture scenario with your investment partners. But what I highlight here in red color is the word trust. No matter how much you want to form a business together with the new partner, anything that I put down over here are just the criteria. The ability to maintain a perfect fit between the context of the business. But why I put only the word trust? Because when we do business with overseas partners, to create a supply chain in the region, Thailand to Indonesia, Indonesia to Philippines, which we already are in, there is one element that they need and you need to trust each other to the full extent. Japanese system, Japanese business is constructed of contracts, just like the Americans. However, on a Japanese perspective, there is one word which is, I can't translate into English as well, but The closest word I can think of is the word honor system. They have to, if you sign a contract, I signed a contract about 200. To that day when you sign the contract, you never come to refer to that, unlike the Americans, anymore. Because you already overcame the factor that you have earned each other's trust. We trust them to supply us with technology. They trust us to manufacture under their contract or under their requirements. So the trust factor was how to adapt your culture to work with each other to create and form a partnership with your overseas investors. And that is what we focused on heavily in those days. Here we have international strategies, how to go into differential markets, standardizing products, and create a certain skill set for the marketplace by using two factors, as I said. When you grow into a market where you have a senior or aging population, you have to create a new skill set of staff to cater to the markets that are growing in that direction. Thailand, at the moment, is already about 19% aging population. In 5 years' time, we will be 23%, running after Japan. So when you have a population of that nature, the skill of your people have to change and cater to their needs, your customers' needs, which is in this case, the first criteria is the aging population. The second one, what comes together with people who are of an aging population is a chronic disease. Either they have a certain illness and have to go back to the doctor every time, and that is how you form your strategy with your partner on an international basis, to grow together for those two criteria in the market. Customization. One of the few reasons we were given how to create a partnership in Thailand was that because we understood the local and regional markets. Unlike many advanced countries, Southeast Asia, Thailand, Cambodia, Indonesia, Myanmar, Laos, to some extent even Philippines, we were on the same level of the patients enter a hospital the same period of time. So this actually formed a profile for us to create a strategy to customize. We cannot use international standards in this case because these are all regional and domestic requirements. Some of them do not follow international practice. So our design elements, a strategy for those markets, be customized, which our overseas partners could not understand as well as we who are based locally. So in format, that's why skill sets, transferring skills, customizing and stimulating local responsiveness. Our responsibility, it is our job to do so, to ensure that they stay with us in the long run. Here, another word I have to give caution to. If anybody is into partnering with overseas investors, one word which is now becoming very heavily intensified is the word license. When you say you are manufacturing under a certain license, you need to study exactly what the contents of licensing entails. What does it actually govern your business and how you have to comply and conform in order to become licensed to do business on their behalf. Granting permission to do business in another territory by your partners is one of the most heavily accented forms of a contract. So licensing for international basis requires somebody knowledgeable. Either you employ yourselves of a legal aspect, or you use a qualified international law firm, which we have done even when we enter into Vietnam. Here are some samples of what you need to think into a contract. All the keywords that will come up on a printer for you to read and follow, and either that come up with your contention on what you think you can follow and what you need to amend or correct. These are what I'm sharing with you, which can be found when you enter a stage where you need to have a partner from overseas or from locally, but these are what they will bring up to you. The ones I put in blue are the ones that normally we are not really prepared for. What I mean, what we're not really prepared for is sometimes they can create a certain criteria in a contract that you were not aware of before, that what your people determined to be a product of a defective nature has to be thrown away, for example. But your partners say, no, we have to correct that from the start, otherwise you are throwing away money. These are what we call AQL, acceptable quality limits. All these things are contractual basis. But I'm sharing these with you in case anybody of you has a chance or are already in that relationship with a partner to look into all your contingency plans. Even product recalls have to be highlighted. Here is another part of contract on entering new markets, overseas especially. Either alone or through your partners. This is one thing that I normally would have to, this is actually taking me 3 hours to go into detail, but these are strategically driven for foreign market entries. Time is very short. So the next one is your strategy on niche markets. It's going to take me a little bit of a explanation to do. Niche markets in our industry, that you don't do products like most people are doing. What we created in the medical device field, we found that not only people are the patients or our customers, we found that there was a certain criteria of users who were animals, but not animals as a pet, animals that were used to create serums and vaccines. This is what we call biotechnology. So we found that niche markets, if you include that as part of your planning, you can actually create a direction for your business to grow from a generic medical device, swimming all the way across into the biotechnology and looking at your end users differently, no longer humans. In this category, it was a very well-controlled, cultivated animal population in our partner's destination country. As that became prominent, then we found that what I'm trying to say is that Australia has got more animals than humans. So when we had partnered with an Australian pharmaceutical firm, we discussed the prospects of entering the biotechnology field, and we found that the population base in Australia was more animals than humans. And we found that among those population, there was a certain criteria to extract blood components to create vaccines and serums for human use. That is why we added more value to a generic product in the basic medical device into biotechnology, using a focused strategy to enter a new market in biotechnology. Again here, another example I was telling you is that the purple bag that you see there is actually a tuna derivative for consumption and digestion patients who eat by themselves. They have to be fed by tubes, and this is another strategy that we have focused into nutrition, into clinical nutrition. Here is what I'm trying to tell you a while ago, biotechnology to biomedicine. The value, if you were starting a while ago when I showed you in my earlier slides from plastics technology, per kilogram was cheaper, by far, much cheaper than you were selling per kilogram in the biotechnology field. For example, the cost of creating a vaccine. Our products ended up making a vaccine for H1N1, for example. That is how we actually swam upwards into a new diversified business into biotechnology, using partnerships with all the large abattoirs. Abattoirs are people who control animal farms in Australia, who can actually cultivate and prepare the live collection of blood cells for us, for our partners actually. Here is another perspective on how you control your alliances with your partners on a strategic basis. Your, again, mutual trust and commitment is another factor I put together in creating a new vector for our business. Here is investment strategies. Diversifying your core business. As you saw a while ago in my earlier slides, we have medical, 5 companies, we have real estate, we have textiles, and we have agro-industry. But doing expansion, creating a new line of business was something that needed investment. Either you form your own funds, or you request what we call a co-investment from your partners overseas. But as I said, it took us 48 years to get here. So it's a long, steep curve in order to win investment strategies from your partners and how they will commit to create and rapidly help you to change your core business into a new market. And that's we never expected that 48 years ago. If I was that long time ago for us, We were never sure that we would go into dialysis or even electronics nowadays. We were just plastics. Cooperative arrangements, creating new entities, enhancing their strategic objectives. This is another lecture that I give normally on creating value-added relationships. And lastly, I think I have to share you, or would like to share with you, that what I have talked all together is all focused in the preparation of a proper strategic map. All the business sectors that I have shown you from a real example in our formation with Japanese or with overseas partners, even with the Australians, end up here. Either we agree mutually that we will follow this strategic map to get add more value to our shareholders, creating either new products, putting R&D, managing your resources, educating your people, training them to be qualified in the medical industries. Everything ends here. It's a strategic map that you and your partners have to conform and agree upon that we will follow this direction in the long run. When you form a partnership, you just cannot break so easily. It continues and expands and creates more momentum for your industries altogether. That is why today's subject that I was requested to portray and share with you had to do with creating a medical hub. It doesn't have to be Thailand at all times. It can be your neighboring countries. It can be an alliance that you have between Thailand, nearby countries, or even as far as, in our case, as far as Australia and Japan. So it all has to do with creating a supply chain, not only based on our industries, but from overseas as well. And I think I'm done with my time now. So this is my name, Joe Tilaka, and it's been a pleasure to give you a 30 minutes presentation. If you have any queries, either now or you want to write me directly in Thai or in English, Chinese and Japanese, please do so. Most welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joe Tilaka, the Director of TI. We are going